Alright, time to take a closer look at this Kukri here.
You better run, Gary! I am going to hunt you down!
Okay, so this is the KH, which Extrema Ratio sent me for review, and I uploaded the testing video not long ago. Like I mentioned in that video, this model is basically what the Far Cry 4 Kukri is based on. And it's quite an interesting one. So the blade is made of N690 stainless steel, made in Austria. I talked about the steel in another video, which will be linked down below. But the short version is it's got excellent corrosion resistance, good edge retention, and it's relatively easy to sharpen. So overall, very high quality steel. The hardness is 58 HRC. The handle is Forprene, which is a vulcanized thermoplastic elastomer. In more common person's terms, a mix of plastic and rubber. And it really gives you the best of both worlds. It's got the hardness of the high impact plastic for durability, but you also get a bit of the softer feel of rubber. I mean, it's not elastic enough that you can compress it with your fingers, but you still feel, you know, this kind of rubberized plastic feel. If you've handled one of those before, then, you know, it feels really quite good in the hand, and it's got a lot of traction. The rubber definitely helps with that. Even though it's a smooth surface and doesn't have texturing, there's definitely very good grip, and it doesn't slide in the hand even when it's wet. So that's a pretty good design. Interesting handle shape too. So you've got this cutout here. You can see right there, it's a bit narrower there. And then you've got, well, not quite a sub-hilt, but there's a bit of a bump here that your fingers can catch on. So there's a variety of grips you can use. You can either choke all the way down like this, and then the index finger rests here. That's really good for powerful chops. Or you can choke up and have two fingers up here, or you can go further, have the index finger on the choil, and then you've got at least two fingers on this area here. Now, at first I was worried that this might be uncomfortable or in the way, that you just kind of keep bumping into it and it gets annoying, but it really doesn't. This is really, you know, regardless of how you hold it, it's always an advantage. I feel you always got a bit of extra purchase here, something more to hold on to hook into kind of, and also this here at the end, the way it widens, that also helps keep it in your hand. So this is really not slipping as you strike. There's no way it goes anywhere. It's got a finger guard here, so if you were to stab or pry with it, it would prevent the hand from riding up onto the blade. And if you want to choke up, this is extremely secure. You've got the guard between two fingers. This finger rests on the choil, and yeah, the hand is definitely not moving in this position, and you've got a lot of control. So this is where you can do finer tasks if you don't want to chop but rather cut or slice. You can, you know, grab the blade here and do push cuts with it that way, things like that. And this is also where it comes in handy that it's a combination grind. You can see that here this is a flat grind, so this is for chopping, and then this is actually a hollow grind. And that is a really neat feature to have that combination, because the hollow grind, it can be sharper than the flat. So this you can really use for finer tasks. And for chopping, of course, you want a sturdier edge. The hollow grind wouldn't be as durable. It may also be a potential structural advantage. You know, this kind of ridge here strengthens the blade. It gives it extra rigidity. Now, arguably, with a spine this thick, it probably doesn't matter too much. So this is definitely a very robust design, durable, strong. Also looks interesting. You see here this transition, and it's easy to get fingerprints on there, as you can see. But, makes it look pretty interesting, but it's really mainly a practical consideration, of course. Also, this, everything about this design is really about strength and durability. Like the tip here as well, you can see the tanto grind. This makes it extremely strong and durable, so you can easily pry with that, no problem. You can see how thick this is. You know, a lot of points taper far more than that. Now the drawback, of course, is, you know, stabbing isn't really ideal with this. Regardless of what the game is trying to tell you, it doesn't do that as well. It's really more of a survival knife and general tool, multi-purpose tool. That it does really well, in my opinion. So as I said, you can pry with this point here. You can strike with that. You see this corner here of the tanto point. That's quite effective for cutting into material, and chopping, of course, with this entire section. This also is a good spot that concentrates force. It's not designed as a fighting knife. It could be used as such if need be, because this can deliver some really powerful cuts, and that can really dig into flesh and bone and then follow through with the cut. So it's got a lot of potential for all kinds of purposes, really, even if you have to defend yourself against wildlife. Not a whole lot of reach, but certainly power. You can strike pretty hard with this. If you wanted to make a fire, for example, you can grab the blade and make feather sticks, things like this. You can slice fruit and other food. So yeah, just like it's really shown in the game Far Cry 4, they use these for all kinds of everyday tasks as well as fighting, and yeah, definitely does the job. Oh, and by the way, if you see the exposed tang here, don't worry, it doesn't stop there. It is actually a full tang. You can see the screws here. And it is nice that they use screws, because that means that you can replace the handle if you want to or have to. So if it gets damaged, and you can just, you know, find some wood and carve it into the shape that you want, just insert it, put the screws in, and there you go. It chops, cuts, and slices really nicely. And also it came hair shaving sharp out of the box. When using it, I found it doesn't give you much hand shock, if any. Even when doing full power chops into hard wood, not a problem. And the edge is impressively durable. Chopping wood basically did nothing at all to the edge. The only noticeable bit of damage is right here near the tip, and that was from throwing it. So when throwing it into a wooden stump, you know, this, of course, it can hit rocks and pebbles when you miss, or if it bounces back, or can be various things that it can encounter that are poison for a blade, essentially. And this, I don't even know if you can see that. Let me try to get a little closer here. This might be difficult to show at all. It's hard to see even. And the rest, the main cutting edge here, is perfectly fine. Of course, the fine hair shaving initial edge didn't last through all of that use, but all I did afterwards was just take a ceramic rod and give it 4 strokes. That's all, just 4 strokes on the edge just to straighten it back out. And now it's almost the way it was. So this is not resharpened, it's just honed. That's all it was. And down here. What I also find remarkable is how wear resistant the finish is. You know, normally after this sort of test on a black finish like this would already start rubbing off around the tip in particular. This one, not at all. You can see there are some scratches on it, but that's it. So it didn't actually rub off. That's a really impressive finish. I've actually not seen this so far. Everything else that I used, almost as soon as you especially throw it into a stump or chop wood with it, it wears off immediately and starts rubbing off. This stuff is very durable. So that's really nice. This is also the reason why I normally don't like a black finish, because as it starts rubbing off, it just looks kind of silly. But this is fine, because it really doesn't seem to wear much at all. It just gets scratched, you know, just like the steel, the unblackened steel itself would. And here's a look at the sheath. This is also quite heavy duty. You can see this looks like hard rubber in between, and the stitching, it's a double stitching. Looks very sturdy. It's got a pocket here. This is really narrow, so you can't fit too much in there. And it's got the double snap buttons here. You can tie it to the leg with the strap here. In fact, 2 straps, so that's really neat. So very sturdy, well-designed sheath. All right, so let's talk about the elephant in the room. The price. So 427 euros. That's a lot of money, especially for a knife. But in general, that is quite some cash to put down, really. And the question is it worth it? So, of course, personally, I'm a little biased here because they sent it to me. I didn't have to pay the full price, so it's easy for me to say, oh yeah, totally worth it. But I'm just gonna talk about it anyway. So I can understand the price when looking at the materials and how it's designed. Generally, for anything cheaper, you're not going to find anything with a combination edge. There are, of course, good traditionally made kukris, made of spring steel, and there's some pretty affordable, high quality ones that work fine, no doubt about it. This, I feel, is a little more versatile, and it's kind of a more advanced version. It's kind of the evolution of the kukri, if you will. So, materials, a little better, design, a little more sophisticated. And I wouldn't say that this is necessarily more durable than a traditional kukri, because those are just almost indestructible. I've had a number, and they are really extremely well made and sturdy and strong and useful. So it would definitely be easier to recommend this at a lower price, no doubt about it. If it was, 200, I'd say, yeah, go get it immediately. 300, yeah, still, definitely. 427, it's a little painful. I can see where the money goes into. The design is really good, and I love this thing. I've got to be honest here. This has very quickly become one of my favorite knives. The way it looks and handles and performs is really impressive. Gotta say that. This is easily one of the nicest knives I've tried so far. And yeah, that kind of quality has its price. I think it may still be a little expensive, especially with shipping and import fees. This is going to get painful pretty quickly. So in conclusion, really the only issue is the price. Otherwise, I can't find any fault with it. It did its job remarkably well. A number of other knives and machetes that I've put through this kind of testing came out a lot worse. Literally the only significant sign of use here is on the handle right there. There's a little bit of plastic rubber scraped off from throwing it, but that's of course also abuse, really. This is not intended as a throwing knife, even though it works surprisingly well. You just got to find the right distance and it works perfectly. So yeah, definitely a nice take, a modern take on the traditional kukri. And it's, significantly different from a traditional kukri. So even if you own one, then you may still consider this. I'm not trying to say that, traditional kukris are inferior or anything. I just think that this is just, it's just kind of a modern update, if that makes any sense. I'll leave a link in the video description down below. If you order it through that, you get custom laser engraving and a diamond sharpener for free. Hope you found the review helpful, and thanks for watching.
It's only a matter of time until I blast your head off, Golly!